YouTubers, welcome to the channel. Before we launch into today's session, I want to invite anyone who hasn't already done it to subscribe and visit as often as you like. If you would be interested in some one-on-one Skype sessions, you'll find an email you can reach me at in the description of any video that I put up here. So right on to this is part of our series. I do have some playlists going to try to keep things a little more organized here, but I'm calling it Using Bluegrass Standards to Grow, which is, oddly enough, a different concept for a lot of people, where instead of just memorizing solos that don't really move the needle on your overall mandolin playing, unless you really force that to happen, it might not be. So I try to take these particular jam session standards that get called a good bit and make it about that big picture. Today's is based on one of my favorite mandolin solos of all time under the Bluegrass umbrella, played by Doyle Lawson with the Bluegrass Album Band on, I'm pretty sure, Volume 1 is the record that had On My Way Back to the Old Home. We're going to talk about the break and what he did. It's very much a Bill Monroe styled solo. But the big picture with this break is that we're using the chop chord position, Bill Monroe's chop chord, which is very much like an arpeggio. And we're playing out of that same shape. That muscle memory that we have for the chop chord is going to provide the foundation. Let me see if I can get through the solo. This isn't exactly what he played, but really close. Back to the rhythm at the end of the break. So it's a Bill Monroe styled solo over this chord progression. So to break this down as far as the concept of what we're doing before we get into any specifics, if you were playing rhythm on the tune, you would recognize the B flat chord as the one. If you're not following along with that, there are other videos on the channel. You can maybe go back and catch up with some of this, but like the chop chord being the basic same thing as an arpeggio in terms of muscle memory. To make that B flat chord, we're going to put the ring finger on the 8th fret of the D string and then play our chop chord shape. So our 4 chord is directly above that. It's an E flat. Notice I have no pinky finger note at all. I'm just playing it this way instead of a full chord because we're going to use these positions to play the solo. The 5 chord is actually an F, and if I were chopping rhythm, I would shift up, get my ring finger over the 10th fret. That's an F note. Always notice with F and with C and G, these 3 double stops up here, you have a fret marker under your finger. The 7th and the 10th fret both have those dots. That's what the inlay pattern is for, those points of reference. So anytime you need to play an F chord, you should be able to look at that 10th fret and go immediately to it. In the solo, we don't even have to make that move up to here because the F that we're going to use is only going to be a double stop. So we're going to be able to stay right here in this same neighborhood of the fretboard. Now, I played that earlier at tempo. I'm going to take some off of it now, and look how the whole first chord that we're playing out of is B flat. All of those embellishments, the first note, I'm going to slide from the 7th to the 8th fret. That could be almost like a 5th to 6th fret note. And then slide 4 to 5 on the A string into this double stop shape, again, that we recognize as part of the chord. And we really don't want this to be perfectly clean. You can hear there's a certain amount of slide and embellishment where the spirit that it's being played with is more important than the cleanliness of each note. I've always loved Doyle Lawson's interpretation of this, because everyone trying to play Bill Monroe is going to arrive at a different end product, because none of us can sound exactly like him. And there's a bunch, all of my heroes happen to also be able to play Bill Monroe style very well. And those heroes include Doyle Lawson, who we're talking about today, Ricky Skaggs. Sam Bush is a tremendous Bill Monroe style player, comfortable with that and steeped in these traditions. So, but none of the three of those examples that I'm using, and there are plenty of others, but if you listen to Doyle Lawson or Ricky Skaggs or Sam play Bill Monroe style, they all sound different doing it. So that's a really good indication that you will too. So you want to go back to the source, listen to Bill Monroe, but someone like Doyle Lawson that plays with that much integrity, you're not going to go wrong learning some Bill Monroe style playing, listening to his spin on it or to his end game through using these same techniques that we're all going to with muscle memory of the chop chord. Anyway, I apologize. That was a long spill about this, but that's really the big picture. We're using this tune and this solo as a vehicle to get better with a Monroe style that we're using these chop chord positions to play. So that lick, again, we want it to have that slurry sound and really the spirit of it to be like the Monroe sound. That's more important than how clean we play the notes. If it's too clean, it won't sound very convincing. So you can see at the end of that line, after we made it up to that double stop, I'm going up to a third above the root note. Here's a B flat note. The third in that scale is a D. I had already played that interval here when we slid into it. So we're moving back up an octave above this D note. Look at that phrase. All based on that shape. Now we just move to the E flat. From this position up to the E flat. We did the same thing playing out of this position, which is the 5th fret on the D string and the 8th fret on the G string, just like chopping the E flat chord. And we're moving around that shape, embellishing with those same slides. We go from the top of the solo. Back to B flat. Starting that line on the high note, the highest interval of that arpeggio, or the chop chord shape, and then up to this D note. I know you've all heard that phrase from Bill Monroe. This is what I talked about earlier, where the F that I'm going to, I'm not even shifting up here to put these fingers over the dots at 7 and 10. I'm just playing the same double stop that would happen here if I were playing the chop chord this way. This would be index finger 7th fret, D string, middle finger 8th fret, A string. I'm not even making that shift. I'm just going to use my middle finger for the 7th fret, D string, ring finger for the 8th fret. Same double stop. That way I'm still in, like I like to use that word, this neighborhood of the fretboard. And there are really no notes played when I'm going to F at this time. It's just kind of a double stop and then a strum kind of thing, again with that slur to represent the whole 5 chord. I'll go from the top again. That was basically a repeat of the phrases we used before. B flat, to E flat, back to B flat again. Similar phrase, but shorter, then to the F, another slide into the double stop, and then this Bill Monroe lick that you guys have all heard. Again, look at the chop chord shape, lay down the foundation with your pinky, again at this 10th fret, and then it's that slur, that drag down the string. You could sit for hours and play that one phrase trying to perfect your delivery of it. I've heard Alan Bybee play that phrase with such precision and just absolute. It's very obvious that he's worked on that and singled that phrase out to be able to execute it. That's what all of this is going to take, is hours of looking at each one of these slurs or embellishments and try to make it come out in a way that feels very natural to you. At first, this could be really awkward when you're trying to play in the Monroe style, but as far as playing out of these chord shapes, I think it's going to be tougher to find a better solo than this one for On My Way Back to the Old Home in B flat, borrowing this big time from Doyle Lawson, playing with the Bluegrass Album Band. If you haven't ever heard that, check out this cut for sure as part of your work that you're doing with this video. But you want to listen to that whole album if you really want to hear the spirit of bluegrass music captured with modern recording techniques and with more of a modern spin on it, but still just as hardcore as it gets, and one of my favorite bluegrass recordings of all time.